Did you start yours, sir?
We're all started, ready to go here.
Okay, great. Introduction time. Tell us who you are, Ryan, and why you're in this double A meeting in AA.
Well, I'm here today for the sole purpose of discussing a chapter in a book by Friedrich Nietzsche. It's called The Honey Offering, Ben. What will that have to do with what Zarathustra's put up with so far? We're gonna find out. Okay? Is it gonna be Zarathustra's final preparation before he blesses man once again? We don't know. We're gonna find out.
Okay, I will start the reading. Let's go. I'm going to start. And again, months and years passed over Zarathustra's soul, and he did not heed it. His hair, however, grew white. One day, as he was sitting upon his stone before his cave and gazing silently out, but the outlook there is of the sea and tortuous abysses. Tortuous abysses. Damn it. His animals went thoughtfully around him and at last placed themselves in front of him. "O Zarathustra," they said, "are you perhaps looking out for your happiness?" "Of what account is happiness?" he answered. "For long I have not aspired after happiness. I aspire after my work." Whoa. "Oh, Zarathustra," said the animals then, "you say that as one who has too many good things. Do you not lie in a sky blue lake of happiness?" "You buffoons," answered Zarathustra and smiled. "How well you chose that image. But you know too that my happiness is heavy and not like a liquid wave. It oppresses me and will not leave me, and behaves like molten pitch." Then his animals again went thoughtfully through him and placed themselves once more in front of him. "Oh, Zarathustra," they said, "is that why you yourself are growing ever darker and more sallow, although your hair looks white and flaxen? Behold, you are sitting in your pitch." "What are you saying, my animals?" said Zarathustra, laughing. "Truly, I spoke slander when I spoke of pitch. What is happening to me happens to all fruits that grow ripe. It is the honey in my veins that makes my blood thicker and my soul quieter." "It will be so, O Zarathustra," answered the animals and pressed towards him. "But would you not like to climb a high mountain today? The air is clear, and today one can see more of the world than ever." "Yes, my animals," he answered. "Your advice is admirable, and after my own inclination, today I will climb a high mountain. But take care that I have honey ready to hand there. Yellow, white, fine, ice cool, garden, golden honey in the comb. For I intend to offer the honey offering." But when Zarathustra had reached the summit, he sent home the animals which had accompanied him, and found that he was now alone. Then he laughed with his whole heart, looked around him, and spoke thus: "That I spoke of offerings and honey offerings was merely a ruse, and truly a useful piece of folly. Up here I can speak more freely than before hermits' caves and hermits' pets. Offer? What? I squander what is given me. I, a squanderer with 1,000 hands. How could I call that an offering? And when I desired honey, I desired only bait and sweet syrup and gum, which even grumbling bears and strange, sullen, wicked birds are greedy for. The finest baits such as huntsmen and fishermen need. For although the world is like a dark animal jungle and a pleasure ground for all wild huntsmen, it seems to me to be rather and preferably an unfathomable rich sea, a sea full of many colored fishes and crabs for which even the gods might long and become fishers and casters of nets. So rich is the world in strange things, great and small, especially the human world, the human sea. Now I cast my golden fishing rod into it and say, "Open up, human abyss. Open up and throw me your fishes and glistening crabs. With my finest bait shall I bait today the strangest human fish. My happiness itself shall I cast far and wide, between sunrise, noontide, and sunset, to see if many human fishes will not learn to kick and tug at my happiness. until they, biting on my sharp hidden hooks, have to come up to my height, the most multicolored groundlings of the abyss to the most wicked of all fishers of men. For I am he, from the heart and from the beginning, drawing towards me, drawing up to me, raising me up, a drawer, trainer, and taskmaker, who once bade himself, and not in vain, become who you are.
Thus, men may now come up to me, for I am still waiting for the signs that it is time for my descent. As yet, I do not myself go down as I must among men. Therefore, I wait here, cunning and scornful upon high mountains, not impatient, not patient, on the contrary, one who has unlearned even patience, because he no longer suffers impatience. For my destiny is allowing me time. Has it forgotten me? Or is it sitting in the shadows behind a great stone catching flies? And truly I am grateful to my eternal destiny for not hunting and harrying me, for allowing me time for buffooneries and mischief. So that today I have climbed this high mountain to catch fish. Has a man ever caught fish on a high mountain? And if what I want and do up here is a stupidity, better to do it than to become solemn and green and sallow by waiting down there. To become, by waiting, a pompous snorter of wrath, a holy howling storm from the mountains, an impatient man crying down into the valleys, "Listen, or I shall lash you with the scourge of God." Now that I should be angry with such wrathful men, on the account they are good enough for a laugh. How impatient they must be, these great alarm drums that must find a voice today or never. But I and my destiny, we do not speak today, neither do we speak to the never. We have patience and time, and more than time. For it must come one day and may not pass by. What must come one day and may not pass by. Our great Huzzah, our great far-off empire of man, the 1,000-year empire of Zarathustra. How far may that far-off be? What do I care? But I am not less certain of it on that account. I stand securely, with both feet upon this foundation, upon this eternal foundation, upon hard primordial rock, upon this highest, hardest primordial hill to which all winds come, as to the dividing place of storms, asking where, and whence, and whither. Here laugh my bright and wholesome wickedness. Down from the high mountains cast your glistening, mocking laughter, with your glistening bait for me, the fairest human fish. And what belongs to me in all seas, my in and for me in all things. Fish it out for me. Bring it here to me. I wait for it. I, the wickedest of all the fishermen. Away my hook in down, bait for my happiness. Drop down your sweetest dew, honey of my heart. Bite my hook into the belly of all black affliction. Gaze out my eye. Oh, how many seas round about me. What dawning human futures, and above me what rosy stillness, what cloudless silence.
Whoa. Mind blown again. What a great analogy for the future of man. Am I right, brother man?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. We got some good stuff here. We've got Zarathustra preparing for his final descent to humanity. And in the beginning, he kind of talks about how he's neither patient nor impatient. And it's sort of a good analogy for, like, if you don't track time, you know, it's gonna make itself apparent to you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think in the beginning there, like Zarathustra kind of tries to hide his happiness, and the animals kind of see through it. So although he is like content in his happiness at the moment, his happiness will not let him rest or be content. Because so he, even though he's in his happiest moment, he knows that there's more for him on his path. His path hasn't come to an end, and so
Yes,
he's
he
gonna
has.
spread his happiness throughout man.
Yeah, he has to climb another mountain, as he says. He has more things to do. That's why he's not patient or impatient. It's because he knows that he has things to do, and so he does them without too much thought of, oh, when do I have to do it, or how am I going to do it, this and that. He's just doing, which is very, very Buddha-like, my friend. very, very Buddha-like. I like a lot of these analogies. The whole thing is great. His whole process of explaining to the reader, or not explaining, but showing the reader, like, his time is coming. He is aware of that. He is growing older. And the honey that's thick in his blood is another analogy, like earlier when he said his cup overbeareth and overflowed, that's his wisdom that he's imparting on the humans. Well, he's a human too, but he wants to impart on people to help the primordial foundation, as he puts it, for the Ubermensch. So he sees that his wisdom is again swelling in him, and he has to do something with it. So what does he do? He brings it to a high mountain, and he uses this honey trap, if you will. I like the distinction, the sharp, no pun intended, distinction he makes by saying that he is dropping first using the fishing analogy to bring man up on the mountain, but by using honey as this kind of like rose tinted glasses look at like the Ubermensch, but then reminding you that there are harsh struggles ahead with the sharp hook that's going to be set in your mouth after you taste the sweetness of what could be. You know what I mean? I thought that was a very powerful analogy, because it's not just like some, fucking movie adventure where Frodo finds the ring and or whoever does whatever. There's a lot of pain, suffering, and a lot that entails in the journey.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, I think in paragraph like 4 there with his speech about how, I guess, he's kind of been in the facing the abyss and whatnot, and now he kind of like sees the light of the world, pulling that kind of veil off of the abyss, the dark jungle, and he sees the riches on the earth can supply, and now that he's like seen the light, he wishes to spread it,
Yeah.
Because a lot of it is like, sorry, the stages of getting to the Ubermensch is basically just like experience in a way.
Oh, 100%. That's the best thing. Is I mean, listen, when this guy who wrote this book, when he says the Ubermensch has no need to read and will have no use for this book, it's pretty self-evident that he is so such a proponent, and he brings it up with his description of the foundation being primal and all the analogies of animals, going back to nature and instinct and all that, that experience and understanding of the self is the most important, more important than anything you'll ever read in a book. So, which I don't know how to feel, because it's like, it's too dramatic, like, I get it, I really do, or at least as much as my little monkey brain can get it. But at the same time, the amount of wisdom I've been able to accumulate from reading other people's accounts of life and their trials, you know what I mean? Like, I was able to gain as much as I could from what they teach, and then apply it to my own life and be able to grow. Now, whereas like without it, I definitely could see myself in a much worse position, because like who wants to reinvent the wheel, as my mom's favorite analogy. But how do you feel about the
Actually, sorry, I
so
just had a
uh-huh.
quick point there.
Go ahead.
Well, it's like many ideas take like far longer than your lifetime to think out, you know? So like well, like an obvious example is like, what is our purpose? You know, it's like that doesn't get answered in one person's lifetime necessarily. It's a question.
Until Nietzsche.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like,
We have the answer.
but it's like I think that's like such a good thing to do, is like look at a lot of these philosophers on life and expanding upon their ideas is like really, I think, just so important to do, because it's like if each generation is doing that and actually discussing like morality and basically all these different ways to live, I feel like there would be a lot of solutions found rather than what's going on in the present.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to write this down, because this is more a side note than anything, because I'm thinking of my train of thought right now was that Nietzsche himself read obviously a lot of a lot of everything. He knew like 5 languages. He read and thoroughly critiqued like every philosopher that ever was, and did it like where he like the flaws were just pronounced so much in these people's ways of thinking. But even him saying so it takes a lot for even him to say that the Ubermensch is someone who doesn't read. He doesn't think he's the Ubermensch at all, nor does he think that Zarathustra is the Ubermensch. Zarathustra is just another, as he says earlier, a bridge that brings us closer. We are all bridges that bring man closer to the Ubermensch. Now, my question, and I don't know if you want to say this for later, but it seems very relatable again to Jesus Christ, this Ubermensch figure. It seems almost as if we're never really meant to get there, just like no one's ever really meant to be Jesus. But you have what Christianity teaches, and what I believe what Nietzsche is teaching is you want to continue to perfect the human form and get as close to perfection as possible, but it probably will never happen. And this is a good thing, because then it continuously helps us reflect and get better infinitely. But I don't know if you want to save that for later or talk about that now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of obviously outliers, but for most people, when they hear if they start something, they'll never reach the end destination. I would hope not, but I'm sure such a high percentage would, you know, not follow that path.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I've talked about it on here before, but Benjamin Franklin, who is like revered as a great man, he said he had like an idea of the perfect version of himself, and he never even came like a fraction of a percentage close to his ideal self, but he was so glad that he attempted to do so, you know. So it's like a lot of these things is like it's not necessary for you to do, but if you do go on a path like that, where the goal is so high, even if you get a fraction of a percentage, it'll be much better than what you would have done otherwise.
Okay, so yeah, that's a perfect example. It's all pretty much the same principle, which is like infinite self improvement, infinitely chipping away the not the mistakes, but the errors in your character with a good conscious, with a good unconscious. That's the thing, is you want to improve, but you have to know, like, you kind of have to have a sense of what's good and what's not good, or at least what's like valuable to you, and that's, you know what I mean? Because it can be very weird and like subjective to say, oh, just strive to be the best you can be. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways that can go wrong, and I believe that's what he's doing in this book, is addressing like, hey, let's all strive to be the best we can, and we'll get as close to this Ubermensch figure as we can get. And here's what to avoid. Here's like, oh, here's an example of someone, you know, super depressed and how they got there, and what stopped them from continuing. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what the main emphasis is of this book. Yeah, but I don't want to go too far. I know you want to. We should keep it orderly and like finish the actual reading first, and then we can kind of go off into tangents. I do have a question though, which is I don't know how to feel about this analogy of so when he's on top of the mountain and he's using the honey on a hook, throwing it down into the abyss where the fish are.
I thought that was pretty memeable. I thought that was pretty funny.
What isn't memeable, my friend? That's the future. Hieroglyphics is really the evolution of language. It's kind of funny that it's been right in our face that Egypt is so much more advanced. Anyways, that's another damn topic for another whole series of podcasts. Anyways, my question was when he says that he's casting this hook, with honey into the abyss, and that's where the fish are. The fish are the people. He's saying that the people are all they're in the abyss. So like, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you find relatable to you? Like, do you think most people are really like not facing the abyss, but like, are they in it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you could take that in so many directions. Well, I think everyone faces problems, right? So it's like finding a solution to your problems, never being content. Because if you're content, it's like if, like Kobe Bryant, right? He would still shoot like 10,000 shots a day or something, even when he was basically renowned as the world's best. But it's like, he was never content with how good he was. He, like, if he's the world's best, there's no competition for him. So he has to basically imagine the better version of himself to propel him forward, which is like pretty ubermensch mindset,
Yeah.
I think it's like that's why I like Ben Franklin's, like, he was never content. Basically, yeah, he was never content because he said he was a fraction of whatever he wanted to be, and it's nice to see people who like are that humble about themselves. Like, even though they're the best, they know there's a potential to be so much better.
Good lessons for sure. I'm like skimming through again just to make sure I have some of these analogies correct. Because like on page 253, he's saying at the top that thus men may now come up to me, with emphasis on up, for I am still waiting for the signs that it is time for my descent. As yet I do not myself go down as I must among men.
Well, I think if we can expand on this idea, we should look at, so what does it mean to bait in a fish? You're supplying it with nourishment and baiting it in on the hook. I mean, is it that Zarathustra is so appealing that he won't have to descend, he'll lure the men up,
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that that's what he's doing up there, is he's trying to show people, like, look at these great heights that you yourself and everybody can achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a glimpse of the happiness through the honey, because you can just see his happiness. You can kind of that's obviously very direct.
Yeah, I mean,
metaphor.
we could simplify it as well by saying, perhaps he goes to the highest mountaintop because an Ubermensch would want to climb to the highest mountaintop,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I think it's very interesting that, like, he brings a fishing rod to the top of the mountain to lure men in to follow his teachings. Interesting. Let's see.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep skimming because I'm trying to find them.
I kind of thought so. Like, kind of in 263, he talks a lot about patience.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sort of thinking, like, he's he's waiting for the right time. Like he's not in a rush. Time doesn't matter to him. And I couldn't help thinking about the warrior in the garden, right? Like he is a, let's say, a master of hand-to-hand combat, weapons, all of that, and can jump into action at any time. He could use those skills for crime or whatever, but he's in the garden, tending to the garden. But when like the time arrives for him to defend his home or defend someone in need, he's got those skills equipped. So it's like, I think there's a big lesson in patience here, that you shouldn't try and rush things. Like everything will come in time. Sort of lesson coming out of here.
Yeah, and just like his analogy, you can tie that in also to the to two things that he brings up earlier. One is the analogy of him being a fruit that's ripening. It's like the fruit can't hurry the process of itself becoming ripe. You know what I mean? So neither can you. It's like it's just something you are, as long as you are like actively doing it, like it's something you're undergoing. And yeah, you should strive to do it, like, again, to strive for your perfect form, like Benjamin Franklin. But you can't be too impatient and be like, oh, why haven't I made this much progress? I've made so little progress, and then you end up giving up. So the fruit analogy works there, and also become what you are, or become who you are two very powerful statements that are simple and concise, or sorry, simple and sophisticated, that both Nietzsche and Carl Jung emphasize. Become who you are.
Yeah.
So
I can't help alluding to stoicism with a lot of the thinking in this section. With, he's neither patient nor impatient. So it's like the perfect balance of the two. It's sort of that it is what it is philosophy, right? Like, what was the point of thinking about something that will not occur, or thinking about something that has occurred, when there's the present? And each day moves a day at a time. So take in what the day has to offer, and if the world is burning around you, I would much rather accept it than be the person in despair and crying. And I'd rather be the person laughing about it.
which is something, I think despair is a quality of one of the people he's about to meet. This is the final section of the book, people. He is on his way down, and so he is going to come across several key figures who have been in the book before, and or some of them maybe not, but I know some of them have been in the book earlier. And he's going to bring them to their cave, and it'll be a lot more lessons, and nice lessons. But I believe one of them emphasizes despair quite a bit. What else was I going to say? I was about to say something. Oh, the Stoicism. And I don't know if you've read any other of Nietzsche's work in reference to Stoicism, but I believe in the Gay Science, he actually kind of likes Stoicism. Or at least his critique doesn't sound super negative like a lot of other philosophers he goes through, or philosophies he goes through. He sees the value in Stoicism, but he understands it's a double-edged sword. And his value that he sees in it is that, with Stoicism, I forget the exact analogy, but it's something like your stomach will be able to digest the toughest stones and sharpest glass and hardest metals, this and that, but it'll also indiscriminately digest, like, butterflies and rainbows and all this like good stuff. So his critique was like, it's cool and all, because like it'll help you through the hard times, but you don't want to ignore the good times and be stoic about it and like try and remove yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the Gay Science, as funny as the title as that is, means happy science, right? And
happy pursuit of, because it's science in the sense of like pursuit of knowledge, like its original definition. Sorry.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I think Stoicism is probably if someone who is sad, if they follow the path of Stoicism, I just think it's one of the easier and faster ways to finding happiness, I think like Marcus Aurelius says like, you know, when you wake up to like just marvel at the fact that you're still alive and enjoy it and be happy about being alive, to have the ability to breathe, to think, and to love. And if you wake up over your morning and start like that, and you know, appreciate the present and accept all like ill-willed things that happen to you, all criticism, and you know, don't let it affect you, you know. And it's like that kind of pursuit of that kind of just tranquility in the spirit, and just balance and accepting of all things that life throws at it, good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to do some reading of that dude. Is Epicurus or the other guy that you like, is he also a stoicist?
Seneca, yeah, he's a stoicist as
Ah,
well.
Seneca.
Yeah.
How did I get that confused?
But yeah, I think Marcus Aurelius Meditations is good because it's just like short. It's just random thoughts and sporadic, because it's like over the span of like 20 or 40 years.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so it's just like short little things. So it's nice as like a daily reading to read one of those thoughts he had and think about it yourself, either
Yeah.
critiquing it or how to implement it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, the one you just said about waking up and taking like a minute to just be where you, again, very Buddha-like, is not to just wake up and immediately jump back into the stresses or worries that you had before you went to sleep or of the day before. It's like, wake up, it's a new day, reflect on the fact and have compassion, not compassion, have, um, what's the thankful no, what's the word for thankful, like gratitude, sorry, have gratitude for yourself and for the universe that you're alive, like your health is good, um that what you have, you know what I mean. So like that's a very important thing. If people did that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, and it's like I really believe, you know, so many people have this idea like they'll be happy once they're married with a house and kids and everything, and then they get there and they're not the happiness that they foresaw that they would have. And
Yeah.
you know, so, there's so many occurrences like this, like material possessions. I'll be happy when I get this car, this house, and this all that. If you're not happy in the present moment and not content, but in a way content also, like you have to be happy in every position that you're in. You know, it's like you can't just be like, I'm gonna be happy when I'm rich, and then you get there and it's like you're not happy, and it's like you've worked all this time towards this goal that you thought would bring happiness to you, and you didn't achieve it, you know. And that's where stoicism comes in. Like no matter what position you're in, whether you're like homeless or lower class, middle class, upper class, it's like going up or down through that whole journey, your emotions should be the same. You know, that your same happiness, just the appreciation being alive should be enough, you know.
Yes. I'd like to bring up a very powerful quote that I love. It's Jesus drives an Astrovan, and it comes from one of my favorite songs by Mountain Joy, in which he is singing about his journey of becoming like a musician and following his, in other words, following his dreams, right? And he's saying, "Mom, don't be, you know, you're afraid, but don't be scared. I don't want to see those tears again. You know, Jesus drives an Astro van." And the analogy for people who don't know, an Astro van is kind of just like a, it's not exactly like the best van. It's a nice van, you know what I mean? But it's kind of just like, I don't know how else to put it besides just kind of like he's a wanderer. Jesus is a wanderer. He didn't have anything, and he's Jesus. He was fucking happy. He lived life and was, you know what I mean? So that kind of ties into, I think this definitely ties into what you're saying, which is like, you put your happiness in yourself, not in exterior things, because then you're giving in a Zen Buddhist way. You're giving your happiness, you're giving the control to other things and other people. You know what I mean? Like if, for example, your happiness, you want to put your happiness in some promotion in a job. Well, who gets to promote you? It's your superiors. So you're letting your superiors decide if you're happy or not. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I like that analogy. It's one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, I think I've got something else like with Christian theology in Christ is that he described as like, even though he was the Son of God, which would be, you know, the highest hierarchy of man, right? He was so humble that like his disciples or followers, he would wash their feet, you know, which is like quite a lowly task. And I think that, you know, that's a good lesson as well. You know, don't let your ego win, be humble, and you know, no matter what position you're in life, whether it's the pinnacle of like the business world or whatever it may be, or a janitor, it's being humble is just such an important trait to have.
Yes, the happiness is in your hands. There's plenty of people that that, you know, are in positions that a lot of people or that society itself deems as unfavorable or whatever, and undesirable, and that those people are some of the happiest motherfuckers on planet Earth. You know.
Can you think of an example for like someone who like puts their happiness in just like one thing? Like say like people who go to like festivals and they like trip and all this, and they're like, that's where I'm like truly happy. So like every day that's not at the festival, you know, it's like they're not at their true happiness. It's not, you know, someone dependent on something for their happiness. Where it's like, if they don't have that, I don't think that was a great example, but it's like, if they don't have that, then they're not happy. So if they do have it, they're happy, and it's like, something that's not consistent, that they won't always have, you know? So that's why that balance is so important. You know, the good days, the bad days, it doesn't affect you. You just get through and keep marching forward on your own path.
Yeah. There's a movie that actually embodies that quite nicely, and I hate to say it, but it is a Disney movie.
Okay.
It's a movie that I actually saw that it was something where it was, not that this is like something nothing, this is gonna sound way more dramatic than it was, but I wanted to put myself in a uncomfortable position. So I was like, well, let me just, instead of like doing something I want to do that's comfortable or whatever, I'm going to do something uncomfortable. I'm going to, despite my preconceived biases and whatever my, what are those, what's that terminology? It's like not just preconceived biases, but
that's
like
good
my
enough.
Yeah, you get the point. I decided to watch a movie. It was called Soul by Disney, and it was actually kind of, it went into the unconscious. It was kind of way more psychological than I ever would have thought. And it was like, it even had like Freud and Jung in it, and they had little parts that were kind of accurate or pretty accurate. So I thought that was pretty funny. But the movie was following this musician who he was a very good musician, and he's been working at it his whole life, and he's finally going to catch his big break. And then, of course, wacky things happen, and it shows him that if he were to continue down that road, that's actually not what he really wanted. He needed to go deep within his unconscious to figure out what he actually wanted. And then he switched paths, and then he was much happier, and it was a much less glorious life. I think what happened, if I can remember correctly, is instead of becoming like a well-known and, you know, active professional musician, he ended up being like a teacher for music, and he sought way more happiness in that, being able to teach and help fertilize the soil for the youth to sprout as musicians themselves and change their lives. So the whole summation of the movie is search within, find within what you really want to do, and also through experience, obviously, but use that reflection within, and then just go and do that. Don't be aware of like the societal influences and direction that society is putting on you, and realize what you yourself want to do, what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think expanding off your point there, I really like this just random Buddhist quote, which is, your purpose in life is to find your purpose. And I think that just simplifies how complicated life is into a very good short sentence there. And then an example of someone which is less Disney friendly for someone who like depends on something for their happiness would be a heroin addict, right? If they're not high, they're trying to figure out how to get high because they're so dependent on that happiness. And it's like, what kind of life is that to live? And it's like the people who end up quitting such like one of the probably the most challenging thing to quit, and they don't end up relapsing, those people have discovered, you know, a key element of what it means to live. And it's very fascinating to talk to people like that who and notice how happy they are, that they found like a way to get high on life in a cliche way, you know?
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you have any other points from the section that you want to talk about. It's kind of straightforward and not super nuanced or diverse. It's kind of pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I'm pretty much good on that. I'm gonna have to get out of here soon, so let's.
That's right. You got important meetings.
Dude,
Yeah.
meetings, dude.
Yeah, business meeting. I got a business dinner I gotta take care of.
I'm trapping that she legit, boy. You know what I mean?
Trapping, boy. Don't forget to ashwagandha, son.
Yeah. Eastern medicine, where it's at.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I'll send you this funny ass picture because it's real. A new product that Derek More Plates More Dates is producing and selling. It's hilarious. But I'll send you the picture. Anyways, all right, so let's wrap this baby up. It was a clean under 45, under hour for sure, under 45 minutes. We did, I feel like, a pretty good job. I hope everybody enjoyed this section. It was brief but full of life, as it always is.
Yeah, and kind of to wrap it up here is to be patient, but not impatient. Oh, sorry, not to be patient or impatient. Find that balance. Just follow the path. Don't have expectations of things to come that you aren't in control of. Control your own world. Control your own happiness. And all the answers are in the earth.
Oh, that's right, they are. I want to add to that a little bit, which is to become who you are, do whatever form of meditation you want to do and reflect on yourself, and realize that it is a process to I'm going to do a throwback to rip off the scales of the dragon of thou shalt. It takes time. You have to really dig deep into yourself and your motivations for doing things to find out if they're really yours or society's or whoever's. And so take the time, a little bit a day. Go for a walk and meditate in your room with some incense and a crystal bowl ringing, or on a motorcycle meditating, however you want to do it. Just defeat that dragon, become that baby.
Yeah, you a thou shalt or you a thou wilt, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
What's going on?
What's going on? Take your shilajit, people. All right, buddy. See you later.
All right. Dense Thinkers out. Thank you for tuning in.